When grown men's appetite for adolescence plays out with militants snatching children from boarding school dorm rooms, who will fight for girls? Gunmen on the lookout as a convoy steals away with 276 units of precious cargo. We snidely ask how Nigeria could let such a thing happen, yet there are children in America suffering the same fate, but hidden in plain sight. Here, teenage girls slip away one by one, easy prey for opportunists who sniff out their need for attention. And it is hard to muster public sympathy for this modern-day slavery when we insist on calling it prostitution. No, they are still children, not old enough to consent, yet bought and sold across interstates and internet as the trail grows cold. Who will fight for girls when the choice is between her body and his reputation, when the story is always framed as womanly wiles destroying a good man? As society debated not just whether Cosby did it, but also the innocence of some 36 women involved, I realized it's no coincidence that many believers also paint a curious picture of King David's sin. How quickly some leap to the conclusion that Bathsheba must have been immodest, when for all we know, she could have been minding her business, bathing in a suitable location, when David strode his palatial rooftop and caught a glimpse. And how naively some suggest that she should have refused in order to prevent the king's sin. Needless speculation when the Bible is clear on one thing: God's displeasure with David's abuse of power. So who fights for girls when the church is not a safe haven? When our exegesis finds female manipulation and temptation, even when it doesn't exist? Constantly putting womanhood at odds with salvation. Who will fight for girls when misogynists are as blatant and clueless as racists? Woman is both punching bag and punch line, either dime piece or worthless. Always too emotional, her legitimate anger chided as bitterness. When lyrics paint her as the enemy, but then artists call her lover once the song fades out. When she has been edited straight out of biopics and biographies, despite being integral to the story. When telling the gory details of her own is somehow deemed bringing the Black man down. When throughout history, no one has ever been more down for Black men than Black women. Oh, who will fight for Black girls when they are Sandra Bland? Society arguing whether her death was by her own hands when regardless, persons and systems were complicit. When she is expected to produce cheer and smile on demand. When people pick fights with her, then cry foul when she defends herself the only way she knows how, with words. And what she says may not be nice or pretty, but she believes that her only ammunition in a fight that was never fair. So who will defend her when she has been manhandled and her dignity trampled? When darkness sets night after night in a lonely, windowless cell, and she loses sight of the light of the God within. When hope is swallowed up by the walls and the fight abandons her soul. Because yes, Black girls may be magic, but they tire of being invisible. And perhaps their greatest trick is convincing the world they are invincible when beneath the glitter, they are still flesh and bone, and deep down in the soul of every strong Black woman lives a vulnerable little girl who wishes someone would fight for her. And I think deep down in every man is the person God has called him to be, partner and protector of God's daughters. But when men's chests are swollen with so much pride that their hearts become infected, and the question, who will fight for girls, continues to go unanswered, I am forever beholden to one whose ego was not too fragile to handle the sisters of a dead man asking where he had been. One whose heart made room for both virgins and women who've known 5 husbands. One whose wisdom knew that freeing a woman of her demons breeds the kind of loyalty that outlasts Calvary. One whose divinity viewed them as persons long before it saw them as women. That gracious man from Galilee, whose response to the question, who will fight for girls, has always been, Lord, send me.